Hi, everyone. Welcome to this session titled Writing on the EA Forum with Lizka Vaintrob. I'm Klim, and I'll be the MC for the session. Following Lizka's presentation, we'll move to a live Q&A session where she'll respond to your questions. You can submit your questions through the swap card live discussion feature, and remember to upvote the questions that you'd most like me to ask Lizka at the end. After 45 minutes, we'll bring the session to an end. So now I'd like to introduce the speaker for the session. Lizka runs the non-engineering side of the EA forum and runs and writes the EA newsletter and works on other content-related tasks at the Center for Effective Altruism. Before starting at CEA, she worked in math education and was a research fellow at Rethink Priorities. She finished her BA at Columbia in 2021 with a double major in mathematics and comparative literature. Over to you, Lizka.
Hello. Great. So we're here to talk about the writing on the EA forum and other things you can do on the EA forum. So that's this thing. I don't know exactly how familiar people are with it. It also doesn't always look like this. It often looks more like this, but we've got an event going right now because it's giving season. So the first thing I would like to start with is just to get a sense of the virtual room. If you could put in the discussion in the chat on Swapcard, something like whether you've posted on the forum, whether you've ever been on the forum, whether you've ever commented or read something on the forum, that sort of thing. So just like spam the chat, just so we get a sense of who's in this call and what people's experience with the forum is, because I'm guessing there's a very broad range of experience. So I'm also trying to get you used to posting in the Swapcard chat. So let's go. I would love to see comments like, I've read some posts, or never been there, or written, thank you so much, seeing some comments. I'm just gonna hold off for a little bit so that we get a little bit used to this format, because I'm gonna ask you to do this a couple more times. Awesome, yeah. And yeah, my hope is that this workshop will be good for a wide range of people, and also we might be able to help each other. And also you can look at other people's answers. There's some coming in. Yeah, really excited to see this. Cool. So we can, I'm happy for you to keep posting as I talk about what the goals for the workshop are. So my hope is I help you know how to get the most out of the forum, that you're prepared to engage in a way that's useful for you and for other people, because often people have various barriers to engaging with the forum. And also that we just collectively improve our understanding of what makes some posts and discussions useful or particularly useful. And for that, we'll talk about why even have an EA forum, what should go on that forum, or like what makes for a valuable post or discussion. And then I'll run through some forum resources and kind of what the forum could give and some less well-known resources. And then also we'll have a moment to take action and some questions at the end. Thanks for the people who are commenting in Swapcard. So let's start with why even have an EA forum. And my basic case is something like this. We've got a very broad global community of people who are interested in this extremely difficult task, which is doing good on a global scale. And I can't emphasize just how hard, like this is a giant mission that we've taken, that a bunch of people across the world have taken up. Unfortunately, I don't know, how you feel about various social media platforms, but unfortunately, I think a lot of the spaces that exist for online discussion that could help us coordinate often encourage various types of discussions that I don't think are as useful for helping us work on this problem as they could be. So they encourage people basically shouting as loud as they can, optimizing for clicks or shares or sort of that kind of thing. Whereas the hope would be actually a place for healthy discussion, healthy disagreement, people coming together, sharing places they're uncertain about, potentially changing their minds, that kind of thing, which a lot of other discussion spaces online especially don't help as much. Hopefully EAGxVirtual will, though. So that's my case for the forum. And we can talk more later about how well the forum does that or how we can improve on that front. The EA forum is not just an online space. What is the kind of thing that should go on the forum? the thing that we often tell people is just discussion and writing that will help us do the most good. But this is an incredibly vague statement. So I'm actually going to ask you to do the chat thing again. I told you that you would be asked multiple times. So what are some types of discussions that you think you've seen on the forum and they seem like there should be more of this kind of thing on the forum, or maybe you hear the phrase discussion and writing that will help us do the most good. What could you imagine being useful? So go ahead and put in the chat, what are some things that you think would be useful to have on the forum or on the front page, which is where most posts go. I'm gonna wait, so you have to do it. What are some discussions, some types of writing that should go on the EA forum, or not just writing? All right, we've got some answers coming in. Awesome. Yeah, there's been a lot of charity evaluations coming in recently because it's giving season. So for instance, animal charity evaluators posted their recommendations, results of initiatives that were completed, collaboration opportunities. So people will post like, hey, I'm looking for a collaborator on X, or we are trying to find people to hire, or fellows, applicants, thought experiments, critiques, cause prioritization posts, lots of good answers coming in. And then there are also different types of posts you could post. So like thought pieces, philosophical blog posts, maybe estimates or back of the envelope calculations, maybe like how many people are working on fish welfare in the EU or something like that. Summaries are very useful. Like maybe you've just done a course on a topic that you think is relevant for lots of people on effective altruism. It's really useful to summarize literature that you read for this. Advice, like I did a project, here's some advice from my experience, and more. So this is not a discussive, an exhaustive list. People also worry about what they should not post. And the most common thing that we see that I would not like to see on the forum, and that actually we've had to fight very hard against, is spam. We get a lot of it, things like, here's my taxi service in New Delhi, and we have systems in place to catch that. But, please don't post spam. I don't think this is a problem for people in this room. But this is by far the most common type of thing that we would not like posted, that people do try to post. Other types of things include, don't post information that you know is false. Don't post personal tirades, probably not the best place. Like, I don't know, Lizka stepped on my toe. Probably not for the forum. So also don't post information hazards. So that's information that is dangerous. For example, actually, I'm not going to give an example of that kind of information. Some things are better as emails, potentially. Like, I'm not sure that my application to EAGxVirtual was received. Can someone check, please? Although you might reach people who might be able to answer that question on the forum, that's just not that useful as a forum post and probably could just be an email. And then there are also just like things that are completely unrelated to doing good. The forum is probably not the best place for that. This is also not an exhaustive list, but maybe this gets us closer to a sense of here's what the forum is for, here's what the forum is not for. And a common misconception that people have about the forum is that you have to have permission, or maybe you have to work at an official EA organization or something like that. You don't actually need anyone's permission to post on the EA forum. So you can just make an account, you can post your first post. It won't go on the front page, so that's like where everyone lands on the EA forum right away, because of this aforementioned spam problem. So we will check that it's not spam, that it's not violating any other obvious issues, and then we will approve it. And if you are still worried, I've told you don't need permission, but you're still worried, like maybe this post isn't quite relevant, you can just ask me. Or you can just post it and people will tell you, and that's okay. But yeah, you can just email me, or you can email the content team, and probably I'll share the slides somewhere. And also there are various places that tell you how to get in touch. And also there are guides about what, how you can get in touch and what you could write, that sort of thing. And writing forum posts is not the only thing that you can do on the forum. You can write a bio, fill out your profile. You can comment on other people's posts. People really like appreciation, follow-up questions, potential like confusion or corrections, that sort of thing. You can message people. You can also post quick take posts. So these are not full posts, but things that are shorter or rougher, or you're just kind of exploring. And you can also participate in events like the donation election that we're currently hosting. So this is also not an exhaustive list, but just so we prevent a misconception that the forum is only about these long form posts. Yeah. So another question, and you can already get ready for the chat. Why might you post? Like, what's the point of posting on the EA forum? So go ahead and see if you are up for posting something in the SwapGrid discussion chat. And we'll talk about some of the reasons to post. Yeah, what's the point? Great, got an answer, breaking the ice. Yeah, I actually think this is an underappreciated point. Someone wrote, by writing, you gain clarity. I think this is definitely true for me. I think it's true for other people, where just the act of writing can help you clean up your thoughts on a certain topic. Yeah, raise awareness of a potentially underappreciated topic. I think this is a really big one. People, like, you create common knowledge sometimes by posting. Sometimes people are actually thinking about a thing in lots of different little pockets. But someone actually posting in public will bring that, like, uncover that a lot of people are thinking about this. And in other cases, no one's thinking about a thing, but a lot of people should be. Improving one's beliefs. Yeah, different perspectives, improving community norms, writing to learn so you can get feedback. Great. So I've got some kind of types of value you might get or produce by posting. So you can help others. Like if you write a postmortem on a project you ran, you will be helping other people who might be thinking of running similar projects, or you can help other people have better beliefs about a field that's relevant to them by like sharing research about that field. Or you can help other people direct their donations better, or help other people find a fellowship that they would have not realized existed. You can learn and skill up. So that's like getting feedback on your work, that sort of thing. Getting noticed, I think, is also potentially an undervalued way that posting can help. So I know of several stories, if not many stories, of people who got job offers or connected with other people because of their writing. So that also ties into the next point. And also it's just nice. Like maybe I've worked on a project and sharing, if I share that I worked on this project, sometimes people will appreciate it and that will just feel very nice. There are also costs to posting. The biggest one often is just time. It will take you some time to write a post. It's, sometimes you will worry that you should improve it and that'll take more time. It can also be really stressful for some people. I don't know how many of you who have posted either on the forum or in other online spaces have ever had the experience of posting something and then coming back and refreshing it multiple times during the day to, see if anyone's written a comment or see if it's been liked or upvoted on the forum. But that can be stressful, and there can be ways that you can protect yourself a little bit from that stress, but depending on who you are, maybe it's just inherently stressful. There's some chance that you will distract people or mislead them if you're accidentally wrong. I think generally my heuristic is you should still post because people can correct it, and like often people will be wrong in directions that you can actually fix, and this is kind of, you can maybe, and then another one that people think about a lot is reputation. So they're worried that posting will harm their reputation. because, maybe they will post something and someone will think it's stupid, or maybe they'll post something and someone will be offended or something like that. I actually think this one's quite significantly overestimated. Yeah, and I think so for instance, posts that people don't like generally don't stay on the front page very long. So that means that probably the worst, like the typical bad thing that happens, which is still kind of sad for people who've put an effort into a post, is that a post they've worked on they'll share it and then it just won't get that much engagement. So it's not the case that everyone sees it and everyone thinks, oh, this is really bad. It's more the case very few people see it and very few people engage with it, and that's kind of sad. And also people don't tend to remember things they didn't really find that interesting. They do remember the things that they thought were actually really insightful, or that they were surprised someone else was thinking about, that sort of thing. But it is a worry. You can also post like with just your first name, or even use a pseudonym, although yeah, you should check the norms about posting under pseudonyms. Anyway, so there are downsides, there are upsides. Depending on who you are, this might, if you're someone for whom it will take more than a week of full-time work to share something that you're comfortable sharing, maybe it's not worth posting. I think for a lot of people, it's worth posting. And there are different things you can do here. Okay, so we've got the forum. We've talked about the kinds of things that could go on the forum. And now I want to talk a little bit about what actually makes for a really good discussion or a really good post. So this is going to be another discussion, software discussion one, so get ready. So what actually makes for a useful post or discussion? So what's something that you would see and you'd be like, oh, we have succeeded with a good discussion. Like, we've done our job. This is a good forum. This is what I want to see more of. So think about it. You can post multiple things. So go ahead and post things in Swapcard. Like, what are properties? What are signs that you see that are signs of success for you, that we've managed to get a good discussion going? And go ahead and post in Swapcard in the discussion. Great, someone's saying people engage. I think that is in fact a sign that we've succeeded at something. Yeah, means that people are interested, people want to hear more about this topic. Room for disagreement. Yeah, specific terminology is a good one. So people will sometimes use terms in a way that people hear something different from what the author actually meant. So it's good to be specific about terms that you might worry would fall prey to this. Or you can just, you can in fact sometimes avoid terms that cause this kind of disagreement. Yeah, people benefit from it. Someone found an opportunity from your post. Great. Unfortunately, we don't hear about this very often. I think it would be really nice if when people applied to a fellowship or, donated something because of a post, it would be really lovely if they messaged the author or commented on the post to say that. But I think this actually happens quite a bit. We recently ran a survey that we'll write up about it. But yeah, I think that's definitely a sign. Stimulating discussion, great. Yeah, next, action steps. So, I've done some research on topic X. Here are some further questions that I think are really important to explore. There's been some discussion by Rethink Priorities on explorations on animal welfare, topics in animal welfare, and they have very good follow-up questions, like what are other things that would be good to research. Great. So yeah, in general, whenever someone changes their mind, I'm like, when I see someone changing their mind in a forum discussion, I'm like, okay, great, we've succeeded. Or someone learning something new, as we said, like taking action. On the changing minds point, I think there's a post that I often bring up in this context, which kind of still I'm really impressed with, which is a post that started as a post called "Climate Change Interventions Are Generally More Effective Than Global Development Interventions." And then after some discussion in the comments, the post is now titled "Global Development Interventions Are Generally More Effective Than Climate Change Interventions," which, this post is from 2019, so you could go and disagree with it and think that the field has changed in various ways. But I think this is a really strong sign that something useful happened in this forum discussion. And part of the reason I think this actually could happen is because of point 3 here, which is clarity or epistemic legibility, which is another thing that I think makes a post really good, which is when the author of a post or someone participating in a discussion makes it actually really clear why they believe something, and not just what they believe. So an example of this would be, if I list, my conclusion is climate change interventions are generally more effective than global health interventions. And then I provide a bunch of reasons, but I don't clearly say, like, these are the reasons that actually lead me to believe my conclusion. Then it would be hard for people to change my mind. And it would be hard for, people would start arguing with all the reasons that are not actually my true reason. But when I clearly say, I really believe this because of these cruxes or these crucial considerations that point me to my conclusion, I think that's a very good property of discussion. And sometimes it's called epistemic legibility. Another one is scout mindset. So that's when, instead of approaching everything like a fight to be won, you treat changing your own mind as a win. And in general, you treat yourself as someone who wants to collaboratively find a kind of a truth with other people. So you want to inform them instead of persuade them. And you also want to listen and provide true arguments and your true reasons for believing something. I actually think disagreement is often very useful, although it can be hard to have in a way that doesn't make people feel stressed or sad. But it's quite important, and that's how people change minds, right? And then also, I think just kindness and generosity on the forum is great. People just appreciating other people, if you're commenting on a post, and you're about to point out some errors, but you actually really appreciate the post, I think it's really good to say, thanks so much for this post, I really appreciated it. And then point out the errors. But in general, being civil and maintaining this like respectful tone is a strong thing that I think makes the forum different from some other platforms, and I think makes other people feel safe enough to express uncertainty, change their minds, and that sort of thing. And the other point in this principles list that I think is important and undervalued is that you should actually write, or maybe not everyone, but without the writing that happens, there would be no forum discussion. And this can be an unappreciated loss when it doesn't happen. Okay, so I will also talk about some forum resources, because the forum is this, it's not just about the posts, and there are some tools that are underused on the forum. So in general, the anatomy of the forum, we've got the front page or the home, that's where posts show up. And then we've also got some other things in this left sidebar that you can see if you go on the forum. So when someone shares a post, it'll go on the top of the front page, unless it's waiting for approval, but let's forget about that for a second. If other people upvote posts, they will stay longer on the front page, and then they will drift down as time goes by and more posts show up. And you can also customize your front page. So if you're particularly interested in posts about cause prioritization or AI risk or something, you can follow those topics. And if you're really not interested in cause prioritization or AI risk, you can see less of that in your front page. And then also there are other ways to engage with posts. And one of those ways is all posts. And some others. Another one is the topics wiki. So we've got a bunch of topics and concepts that collect all the posts that are related to this topic, and also have a little explanation of the topic. For instance, maybe donor lotteries is a topic that if someone if you don't know what it is, there is a topic page on the forum that explains what it is and also collects posts that are related to that. So that's when a bunch of people pool their funds, and then one person is selected to decide how to allocate those funds. So topics function as tags. So whenever something is posted, it will also get tagged with a bunch of topics that are related to it, and then you will be able to find that post on those topic pages. There's also a page called the Best of the Forum page, and that's just a bunch of collections of classic posts or posts that were featured and that kind of thing. There's also events that you can find on the forum, and also you can explore groups and people. I'm not going to go very deep into it, but people are sometimes surprised that this exists, and you can go explore it later if you want. And also there's a how to use the forum sequence and a manual that's got stuff like tips on how to write, how to import Google Docs more easily into forum posts. It's got norms, so like staying on topic, being honest, that sort of thing. And just answers to common questions. And people also don't know about this, don't always know about this, and so maybe it would be useful for some of you to explore. Okay, so we will now have a moment to take some action, and then we're going to move into the Q&A. So the first thing I want you to do is to think a little bit about what you might write on the forum. So we've got different types of content. So yeah, if you're up for it, I would love to see some of you share what you might write in the chat. So maybe you have drafts, maybe you've thought about posting something, maybe you are now thinking about it. I would love to see like ideas that could be titles or vague descriptions, or just I would like to post some comments, that sort of thing. So go ahead and spam the chat. I have a bunch of posts that I would like to write. Awesome. All right. Thank you, Kaleem. Kaleem says, a follow-up post to a recent post which caused a lot of disagreement. Great. Continuing discussions. I'm just going to keep waiting, so you got to post something. All right. Doing good, happier. Seems good. Awesome. Retrospectives for the EAGX Philippines and Community Builders in Asia retreat. People really appreciate retrospectives. I think, yeah, they have really led to some good outcomes. Great. Whether anyone has done an analysis regarding wildfires in Canada this summer. There's an EAGxVirtual progress thread that you can just add a comment to, that's currently active on the forum. There's a donation debate week starts tomorrow. So that's where you maybe want to change people's minds about where they should donate, or where they should vote, how they should vote in the donation election. Right now it's marginal funding week, where people and projects are posting. Sorry, that doesn't actually start tomorrow. It starts on Tuesday, donation debate week. Research updates, experiences of participating in the community or doing good in various ways. I'm gonna give a little bit more time and then we'll move on. Great. Someone asks if your thoughts aren't specifically backed up with numbers or had evidence, is it still a good idea to post? I think generally that's definitely not a reason to definitely not post. I think it can be, in fact, better to have evidence and numbers, but often a lot of really useful posts are just someone thinking through something out loud. And then people can continue that thinking in the discussion, in the comments. Yeah, having a heavy disclaimer is good. Just there's a thing that people sometimes use, which is called an epistemic status. So that's when you put a note about, at the top maybe, about, these are just my thoughts after thinking about this for a few hours, or, I'm not an expert, just my thinking out loud, or maybe this is what I did my PhD on, or, I worked in this field for 20 years, here are my thoughts, or something like that. So those are different kinds of notes that you can add that help people understand how they should engage with your post. Yeah, motivation, post, great. And another prompt I want to give you is, okay, we've got some thoughts about what we want to post, or how we want to comment, or what else we want to do. What's actually going to stop us from doing that? So, picture yourself, it's 2 months from now, you haven't done the thing that you want to do. What happened? And go ahead and add that to the chat if you're up for it. I'm not going to wait quite as long because maybe you don't want to share, but if you're up for thinking through what stopped you in the next 2 months from doing this thing that you wanted to do, go ahead and put it in the chat. Perfectionism, absolutely. This is a thing that lots of people struggle with. I struggle with it, I think. So yeah, maybe you have a draft, or maybe you don't even start your draft because you're worried that you're just not going to be able to do something that's good enough. There are various things that you can do to combat this. You could commit to a friend. You could ask someone for a sanity check, so you don't feel like you have to trust yourself, your own assessment of this post, and you can just defer to someone telling you, yeah, you should just post this. You could time cap yourself. You can be like, okay, I will spend 3 hours on this and not more, and then just post with a disclaimer. Just say, this is not up to my standards. I also think it's worth kind of reflecting on the what I like to call invisible loss, where we will notice issues with things that we have done, so posts that we've written that are not up to our standards, but we won't notice as easily the harms that are caused by us not posting. So yeah. Being nervous about people's reaction to my writing and ideas. Yeah. Another one that people are worried about. Yeah. So feeling like I might accidentally post something that someone's already said. Here, one thing you could do is you could just reach out to me and you could ask me if I know something that's already about this. But I also would say, I think it's okay I don't think redundancy is that big of a problem. If there's been a post on a topic 2 years ago, most people who are reading the forum today probably have not seen it. So I don't think this is as big of an issue as people sometimes think it is. Yeah. So I really would encourage you. You can also search on the forum in various ways to see if someone's written something. Yeah, procrastination. So to combat that, you could schedule something right now. When are you going to write that post, Kaleem? Yeah. And so in general, I think a very common trend is this worry that we will post something and it will be bad and people will yell at us and it will be really scary. I sometimes ask people to raise their hands. Here, I think maybe you can just look at the chat. I think a lot of people share this worry. People are really worried that the forum can feel very intimidating. Yeah, sometimes I've asked big rooms of people that this question, have you ever been worried that people will react negatively to a post that you've shared? And usually, basically, the entire room raises their hand. And I think this is a bit sad. But I also think that this is sort of a specter. I think this is where I also feel. I think this is a very kind of, it's not silly to have this worry, but I also think it's sort of lying to us, this worry, often, because I think the actual scary thing that happens is crickets. Like, you post something and it's not the case that everyone yells at you. The actual scary thing that happens is that just nothing. You don't really get comments. You don't really get people reading your post. And I think that's sad. But it's not as scary as our kind of imagination can create a potential reaction. I wanted to put a picture of a cricket in the right side of this image, but actually close-up pictures of crickets are terrifying, so we're not doing that. But yeah, you can imagine that, maybe this is a nudge from me to you to replace this scream with crickets. Like, it's still sad, but it's not quite as scary, I think. Yeah. And also, you really can reach out to me or to the content team and ask us if you think that this idea that you have, or this post that you have already written, is something that you should in fact post. Okay, so let's just do this. We've got 2 minutes. Let's do this for 2 minutes. If you don't, let's take action. If you don't have an account and you would like to make one, which would let you upvote, which would let you save posts, post things, comment on other people's posts, that sort of thing, make one right now. It's pretty easy. You just go on the front page and there's a sign up button and we'll walk you through it. If you're not sure about your username, you can change it. You can't change it too many times without moderators checking in or approving this, but you can just reach out to the moderators. We're not that scary. If you have an account but you don't have a bio, you could write a bio. The Forum Digest is a weekly newsletter that shares posts from the last week and news and that sort of thing. You could sign up. You could sign up even if you don't have an account. If you go on the forum and you Google and you search Forum Digest, that will show up. Schedule a time to work on a draft. Send your idea to me or to a friend, maybe someone you met at this conference. Post in the progress thread. So go ahead and do that. And if you don't feel ready to do that, schedule time to do these things. And then we'll move on to Q&A. If you don't want to do that and you have questions, you can also write your questions right now in the questions tab. Thank you for the link. All right. So go ahead and ask questions if you've got any, or keep doing the action. Yeah. And thanks a bunch for putting stuff in the chat and that sort of thing.
Cool. Thanks so much for the presentation. I found it really informative myself, even though I've been interacting with the forum for a couple of years, so I'm sure other viewers also found it useful. We have a couple of questions, but for those who are still writing questions, please do post them in the questions tab so that people can upvote them. So I'll read the ones that we have so far. Wes asks, how do I make my posts better? What is the secret formula?
Right. Yeah, that's a big question. Okay, the first thing that comes to mind is just okay, the honest answer is it really depends on who you are, what your posts are like, it's that sort of thing. For a lot of people, just trying, and then the next time your post will be a bit better, like iterating and doing a thing, maybe asking someone what they found useful or what they think should be improved, and then doing it again and seeing kind of again what's the thing that could be improved. I think that's quite good for a lot of people. Common things that I think could be good, having a summary. There is an editing and review Facebook group for EA forum posts. And you could also do something like ask a friend, or in a local group, local EA group, or in the EA Anywhere network, ask for feedback on drafts. You could potentially post a quick take with a question about whether people are up for looking at a draft, to get some help like that. Yeah, summaries. So other kind of common tips that I would include: summaries, making sure that you are not having a soldier mindset, so not trying to convince people very strongly of an opinion that you are not willing to change if you don't really endorse. Like, yeah, what's the world in which you would actually change the opinion? And are you being collaborative in the way that you're presenting your opinion? I think those are good things. I love images or diagrams in my posts. Sometimes just making posts shorter is good. Reorganizing. Yeah, I could come up with more, but I don't know if that's
All good tips. I guess a follow-up, like my own follow-up to that question is, should people feel encouraged to edit a post that they've already posted, right? So a lot of the stuff that you just mentioned is like considerations that you'd have whilst you're writing a post, whilst you have before you've posted it. But you might have posted something and then been like, oh man, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I could do to make this better. Should they just be really excited to do that?
Yeah, I think generally, yes. I think if it's got a lot of discussion on it, or if it's got some comments, it's very useful to have either like a change log, or, as you're editing, put like edit, this number used to be X, or like this used to say, or footnotes or something like that to make it less disconcerting for people. Yeah, there are ways that you can see edit history depending on the post, but honestly, I don't know the exact setup right now. So yeah, in general, I think it's fine for people to edit. Yeah.
Yeah, the reason why I asked is because I remember how nervous I was when I was getting ready to post the first post that I ever put on the forum.
Yeah.
And I remember a friend who I was sitting with whilst I was writing told me, like, you should just post it, because if you don't like what you've written, you can just go and edit it and it'll stay
Yeah.
up. And that was something that alleviated a lot of the stress that I was feeling.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Um,
You can edit, or you can even put like, this is outdated now. See here for my new.
Great. Another question is, how does the request feedback on draft feature work? Will I receive feedback via email?
Yeah. So I think depending on your account setup, so this is a feature we have not invested in very much for about a year. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. I have not followed the development of this feature that closely, but some accounts, as they're uploading a draft, will see a request feedback button. What that will do is, I think that will send you an email asking you to send a doc version with like common permissions on. And yeah, because it's easier for the person who is running the service to do that in that way. Yeah, and they will give some comments on like the structure or potential other things that you might want to include, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Great. Another question, which I think is a really good one. Where should I draw the line between a quick fact and a post, or I guess a quick take in a
Quick take.
post?
Yeah. Yeah, so quick takes are this, it kind of looks like a comment that shows up in a special section on the front page. And people tend to use this for things that are shorter, or things that they haven't kind of put as much thought into, maybe. And honestly, the line is blurry. So in particular, I've got a post called "A Forum Post Can Be Short," I think, because sometimes people think that, to have a forum post, you have to have 20 pages of writing, which I think is wrong. And in fact, I think often posts would be better if they were, especially if they had summaries of different lengths. Like a 2-page version of your post, especially if it's a longer post. But I still think the quick take feature can be better for a lot of things. In particular, if you're sharing a post, it will be kind of competing for real estate, along with very thought out write outs or kind of very substantive updates, that sort of thing. So sometimes people will not want to see that in the same space as the post. Also, often I think it can kind of encourage people to post something that they otherwise just would not have posted. So if you feel like, oh, I'm not really sure that it's a post, then that could just be a good candidate for a quick take, even if honestly, I could look at it and be like, yeah, sure, that totally could be a post. So maybe that's a heuristic. In general, they're shorter than posts. They have like fewer sections, that sort of thing. But it's kind of up to you, is my honest answer.
Would you have some quick advice if someone's unsure, should they sort of like default to writing something as a post, or should they default to writing something as a quick take?
Yeah, I think if it could be a post, if you could see yourself posting it as a post, it probably should be a post.
Cool. That's a good heuristic.
Yeah.
Is the EA forum a good place for promotion of one-time or reoccurring events like self-care skill workshops?
Yeah, we have an events feature. So you can create an event and it will show up. It's not a post. It's a different type of thing that you can find.
Hopefully time for a couple more. What are some ways to brainstorm post ideas, especially for people who are new to EA and might not have that much insight to share? Also, is it a good idea for people who are still new to post on the EA forum?
Yeah, I think those are good questions. One thing I'll flag is I think being new to EA is not like, it's not actually in and of itself, it's not actually a negative for posting on the forum. Often these people are like, I think a big value of the forum is bringing in outside perspectives and experience. I don't know, an example is we had someone who was very familiar with air filtering systems who posted a really good post on air quality improvements, I think. And like they had just worked in this industry for a while, and so they had like very useful things to share. So in general, bringing in outside experience and expertise is very, very useful. The question was how to brainstorm post ideas and if it's good to post as someone who's newer. I think that there are some things that are probably better posted as either comments or in your local Facebook group or discussed with your people who are introducing you to EA, if you're particularly new to EA, just because they probably will not get that much engagement on the forum if they're being posted as separate posts. So, and that kind of topic is actually not all topics that go on the EA forum, but rather this tends to be things that are more like, maybe it's something that is in the EA handbook, like I don't know, malaria eradication or something, where you have just started thinking about it, but actually it's been discussed quite a bit. I think it's not actually bad to post on the forum, but it might just be useful for you to get a little bit more familiarity with the topic if you're not actually familiar with it that much yourself. And you could post a question. I think that would be fine. But if you're coming in with something more like a reflection on, things you're seeing, that might be better as a comment on other posts or as a, discussion in your local group or something like that. I'm not sure if that helps. But other things you can do is there's an open thread. So I think every 3 months we updated, where you can post really whatever you want. And that's really a good place for people who are much newer to post things like, I'm thinking about X, would love for someone to join me, or here are some ideas for things I could write about. I think those are, people will respond, and I would be excited to see more stuff like that. And another thing you can do is you can just, if you're unsure, you could just look at what other people are posting. And I think that can be a really good way to figure out like what are the good things to post. I think in general, you should not worry too much about it though. Like it's really, yeah.
Great. We have reached the end of the session, and I'm sure it feels like we're getting to the point where people are starting to come up with really interesting questions. So hopefully the conversation can spill onto the actual forum. It would be pretty good. But for now, I'd like to thank everyone who participated, everyone who posted interesting questions and participated in the chat. And obviously, I'd like to thank Lizka very much for the great presentation. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and enjoy the rest of your conference.